so much stuff happening. I work on a cruise ship. I'm just on vacation.
Not everyone that's in the prison that is guilty, but we have a university center criminals.
In 2013, there were 31 gun-related incidents in schools in the U.S., resulting in 25 deaths, most of them students. For 2014, there have been 31 incidents so far and 2 already for the month of June, with 18 deaths recorded. Now you may ask what this has to do with our little island paradise. But don't forget, we have a copycat culture nowadays. Solution do what they see American do. I'm Shane, welcome to another episode of Solutions, Answers from the People, simple solutions offered by St. Lucians. Now there have been 2 cases of a violent crime committed against students here in St. Lucia in just as many weeks. In each case, a young student was attacked by an assailant and stabbed. Today it's a knife, tomorrow it's something more dangerous. Luckily, there have been no fatalities. So we asked the people, what is your solution to create a safer environment for students on and off school premises? Let's hit the streets and hear what the people had to say.
C'est peut-être mettre police associée bon c'était l'école côté qui panique kayopwe yo ça mettre police la sécurité ça yo ka mettre pour protéger maman là c'est ça moi because pour nous même élever nous dans right manière aller sortir l'école home straight sortir home l'école straight c'est ça moi ça dit et puis c'est ça et puis pour nous même maman quitter genou en l'air nous les sortir l'école fouiller bag yo garder ça yo ni les yo ka l'école garder ça yo ni en bag yo ou ça pour nous même maman mettre quitter genou en l'air maman là et mettre police différents côté qui panique yo pour si maman là problème et que yo crier secours. La panique est prête pour la police entre ces côtés ça pour protéger maman là. C'est ça moi ouais.
Okay, what we can do is to provide transportation that will take them in and out of school. Now I know economically it's not feasible to finance the buses, but that is possibly one of the things we could do. Also, there is a call for the security of the police, the patrol of police during the dismissal of school, during those peak periods. These are some of the measures that possibly can work.
I don't know what happening in St. Lucia now, but the kind of way the thing happening, like everything like it's just like it's getting out of hand. Because imagine the Monday, the holiday, I went down by Miss King with my daughter to watch the lime jump band thing. And then at the end of the day, while we sit down on the other side there, I just saying, blogodo, 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 gunshot bursting, my child flying on me. Daddy, let's go, let's leave town now before they kill us. You know what I mean? That's really bad, you know? Really bad for our country. I don't know, I can say the police go be everywhere. But I mean, a thing like that, they're supposed to have police in different corners at least to see, watching the vibe and, you know, at least to protect our, I mean, if it's, I want to be any kind of side, but, you know, if it's the white side, if something happened to a white person, you'll see, you know, like officers all around, you know, make sure they get the perpetrators. But, you know, like once it's black people, like, anything could happen, like you know, to me, it's just right, you know? That's the way I think about it.
Part of the problem is, I think part of the problem has to do with the state, in that we do not have a proper busing system where the children are being bused to school and then bused from school back to home. And then again, some of the parents who could afford to pick up their kids at school should make that effort to pick them up at school. Because I know in some countries the children are being bused to school and even they have to wait in the school for the parent. They have to stay there until the parent comes. And if the parent doesn't come to pick up this kid on time, the school will call the police for the parent. So this is a whole new different scenario. So as I said, the problem is basically it's the state, and I don't know whether we could afford it, but the children should be bused to school and bused back from school. And the parents who could afford to pick up the kids from school should pick up these kids at school.
Really and truly, I don't have a solution to it, because when you really look at it, first, what about the parents who don't have vehicles to drop their children to school and to pick them up from school, right? Look, again, we have job cuts coming. Again, that affects the children. Buses from the government, again, with all of the what's going on, the controversy and all of that, then you find probably parents will not be able to pay the monthly fees or whatever it is for the kids. So really and truly, as parents, to really look into it and to teach our children to protect themselves by probably, again, the cell phone is a good thing because they need to contact you in the event something happen. And again, they get robbed, and probably having security officers at the schools, which also poses a problem on behalf of the government again with all of the job cuts and all of that. So then really and truly, we don't even know what the solution is with all what's going on in the country.
Right. I think children should really be taught to be aware of their surroundings. They need to be taught about, being safe. Sometimes they get distracted because using mobile phones, for example, they should be taught that these are things that they should not be using when they are outside, because it takes away from their focus. And secondly, I think there need to be more safeguards around the school areas. They need to be more protected. We have policemen everywhere, sometimes where they're not really needed. And I think the schools, they should put some system in place to protect the children to and from school until they get into an area that's safer. And basically, that's what I think should happen.
Realize that we can do better than we're doing. We know some notorious schools. We know some places that's more notorious than some. And we know the areas that the kids have to pass through in order to reach their destination. I think these places should be patrolled to an extent. Even though it's undercover cops or whatever, and have probably what you call a community security group within their own community to see that something can be done to help those kids go to school. It's only fair. It's unfair for the kids not to go to school. So I think just not the police in the police uniform presence, but the community itself that the kids pass through, or the kids go to school too, they can do something to help out that situation.
These were just some of the solutions from the people. We'll take a break now. When we come back, more solutions. Welcome back to Solutions. We asked the people for a solution to create a safer environment for students on and off school premises. Let's hear what they had to say.
I think everybody have to keep their eyes on what's going on in the city, and I mean when I say city, all around, province, the city, the neighborhood, to make sure those children are safe. And we really have to talk a lot to the young people, because I realize that a lot of incidents are coming from the youngsters, between 15, 14 up to 20, 25. So we have to talk to young people and ask them, to behave themselves, and that the youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow. So, if we destroy our youth tomorrow, the country can be in a lot of trouble.
Well, after school, then they don't work they work in groups. If they take a bus, they take the bus, they go straight home. They don't take out their cell phones to make calls when you go to, your mother send you to school, then after school you go straight home. You don't stand on side corners with friends on cell phones talking. You go straight home, and I don't think there'll be a problem.
Go ahead. The school should have public buses to pick them up from school to the area where they live, to make sure they drop them on the doorstep like how they do it overseas. Because if not, no matter where you drop them and you turn your back, you don't know what will happen. Even though they take the buses, something could happen. But if the bus pick them up from the school, I guess to the home, it might be a bit safer. That's what I have to say.
I really don't believe the police can do everything. The same way we can bring back that community relations branch back in the police force, like community policing, where we have family watch and each one watch one. I think, I myself will do public safety. So we can work together, that one can, the same way we have those bus system where you find one person can put the kids on a bus and an adult is responsible for that kid. So at least we can work together. Each person can look out for each other. So even if you're not at your home, sometimes somebody else, an adult, can supervise. And that's the whole problem. We don't have that supervision we used to have before. I think that way we can get a better result.
Go back to where the village raised the child. And all of us should be responsible for each other. Be our brother's keeper, as the Bible says.
So in my opinion, I believe that the police should take a more active approach in targeting the school districts and being more present.
To provide a safer environment in and out of school, first of all, I think we as students, we need to start following school rules. School rules are placed there, first of all, to create a safer environment for each and every one of us. And if we take time to follow the school rules, we will have a safer environment. I think when it comes to out there into the world, first of all, I think that we need to be educated more about how we can affect the environment. So when we are educated, then we can come up now with solutions and ways of keeping it safe.
I think that a safer environment would be provided if students would be able to be careful as to where they pass, and if we can get police officers to patrol areas where certain students would be passing, normally going to and coming from school. And also the parents and administration can work together to teach us ways of protecting ourselves.
I believe the key to protecting students in and off school premises would firstly be to minimize the number of expensive devices one has, because if a student has an expensive gadget, then they immediately become a target. The second thing I'd like to suggest is people searching school children to ensure that there are no harmful instruments on them, and more police patrolling the route to ensure that no crime is taking place. And thirdly, I would suggest a neighborhood watch, like a neighborhood watch where students look out for one another, and there are 24-hour cameras, so if anything happens, then they could just look at the tapes.
Students need to realize they have a responsibility. And things could only work if we realize that the responsibility that we have is to ourselves most times. I say that because sometimes you find too many students become followers rather than being leaders. And it is in the background of where they know sometimes that particular group, the things that that particular group is involved in, the negativity, and still we find ourselves being followers to that particular group. And I believe the solution to that is recognizing that we have a lot to offer and not allowing ourselves to be mere followers, but leaders. There's so much our young people have to offer, so much. But when we allow ourselves to fall down the cracks because of the people that we follow, the gangs that, and most times we know, but we still allow ourselves to become victims as a result of following these negative groups. And I believe the solution to that is that our young people recognize that they have so much to offer and not allow themselves to fall through the cracks by following or being followers and following these negative groups. One of the ways they could do that, I believe, is to recognize that they have so much to offer, and rather than becoming followers, decide within themselves that they would be leaders, leading persons to the right way, leading them to the right environment, leading them to do the right things and not get involved in the negative. I believe if a lot of our young people recognize that particular aspect of it, they would not find themselves being victims.
Let's move to our second question. Now, a safer environment for students is not restricted to just protection from crime. The first priority is the physical plant where students spend the entire day. A secondary school in the north was recently deemed unsafe for occupation because of mold and termite infestation. And there are other public buildings with similar problems, posing a serious health hazard to workers. We asked the people, what is your solution to the deteriorating condition of public buildings and schools? Let's hear some of the solutions.
Pour moi, ça c'est gouvernement qui pour croiser ces buildings là, comme maman la l'école là qui pas secure, qui pas propre, avec vieux wifi, vieux building manger propre. Ce côté c'est mon akata biwa même ni pour propre aussi. Vieux croiser, vieux fait, même c'est petit même je pas ça fait one time mais essayer faire un bagage. Il pas ça rester comme un monde pas ça travail qui pas propre. Maman il pas ça l'école qui pas healthy qui pas propre. C'est ça moi ouais, c'est gouvernement qui pour mettre les mains pour aider. C'est ça moi ouais.
Well, totally it's a reconstructing of the building. Maintenance is key. If there's no maintenance, there's always going to be those moldings happening, the whole answer to it is continual maintenance to avoid the moldings. And when the molding has occurs, to just deal with them and get rid of them. You know, there's no quick fix to it, to the thing. Again, one may say, speak of the economic situation, finances and stuff like that. But this is where we have to deal with it. This is how it has to be done.
Concerning the deteriorating building, I noticed that these buildings need to be regularly maintained. It is a habit in St. Lucia whereby you find the buildings are not maintained, and when school closed, just before school reopen, you see they're hustling to try to repair the buildings. And I think that is the problem. So maybe it is fair to say the buildings are partially neglected.
Precaution is better than cure. You don't wait for the problem to reach a cancer cells situation before you do something about it. You should be vigilant as to be checking on these aspects before these things happen. Now, when it reaches the core problem like what it is now, it's a difficult situation. So we could learn from that situation we have now for other times to come. Yeah, check the problem before.
More solutions coming up after this break. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Solutions on Choice TV. We asked the people for a solution to the deteriorating condition of public buildings and schools.
Well, I believe that if the buildings were of a better architectural quality, then they would last a lot longer. The concrete walls and all of the windows, they would have a much better quality. They would last a lot longer. I also believe that the personnel using the buildings or certain rooms should really consider the fact that vandalism is a serious matter and that vandalism should have a greater punishment to it when it is committed.
I think that in reconstructing these buildings, you can use treated wood for areas, or as far as possible, construct the building with cement, and instead of using wooden door frames and window frames, you can use plastic or aluminum or PVC. And in the case of mold, we can have health inspections more frequently, because most people don't realize that they might have mold until they see a water stain. So in light of that, if you have a health inspection regularly, you can be told that when a certain area in your building is prone to molding soon.
Well, I believe that there should be treated material to ensure that there is no mold or termites in the atmosphere, in the environment. Also, there should be walls instead of wooden houses or buildings. And thirdly, there should be aware of the environment to ensure that it's not moist, because mold, when you have a moist area, it brings mold.
That's it from the streets today. Time to wrap up. Luckily in St. Lucia, we have not had any incidents in schools of the magnitude we have in the US. We have a culture where guns are seen as something confined to use by criminal elements or the police, even though one can legally carry a firearm if they can justify the use for protection of their business, their home, or their person. We have had cases where students have carried all kinds of weapons to schools, but there have been no major incidents. Most schools have been able to clamp down on the violent behavior on school premises with help from the police. The next step is to create that safe environment off school premises. Now, no student should be afraid to walk to and from school. One person argued that the school should move because the students have to walk through an area rife with bad boys. But seriously, move a 100-year-old learning institution because of a few young people who are up to no good and who have no regard or respect for education, learning, and success? The authorities know where the areas that are prone to criminal elements where schools are located. Why don't we put police patrols in these areas when students are on their way to and from school? If anything has to move, it's not the schools, it's the law enforcement agency that has to make a move to protect the young students and remove these bad, disruptive, and negative elements from society. Now, the maintenance of schools and other buildings costs money. Schools are particularly costly because of the constant vandalism and blatant destruction of the property by the very students who attend the school. That's the first thing we need to curb. Maybe it's time to adopt the policy in Japan where there are no janitors in schools. Students are responsible for cleanup and maintenance on a daily basis and therefore see themselves as the custodians and protectors of their school. They become, in essence, their brother's keeper. Now, in these harsh economic times, we may need to extend this policy to other public spaces. We need to develop a kudme mentality, each one helping to protect and maintain the public buildings, which by extension belong to each and every one of us. Okay, I can hear some of you saying it already, but somebody has to get paid to do it. Somebody has that job. Now, if we had more time, I'd go down deep into French economist Frédéric Bastiat's broken window fallacy, that which is seen and unseen, which basically illustrates why destruction and the money spent to recover from destruction is actually not a net benefit to society. It all boils down to that money could have been spent elsewhere on other more important projects. So it's back to a kudme state. Kudme comes from the French term coup de main, meaning a helping hand. And Dominican historian Dr. Lennox Honeychurch once described kudme as the social glue that keeps communities together. Kudme may very well be what will hold our country together over the next few years. That's it for today. If you have something to say, we want to hear. Look out for the Choice TV crew for a chance to present your solution to the country. Now, if you have a burning question you want us to ask the people, we can do that too. Send us an email with your hot burning issue at solucian@choice39.tv. That's SOLUCIAN @choice39.tv. Or you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/choicetv St. Lucia. Join us again next week for more Solutions.
So much to happening. Not everyone that's in the prison that is guilty, but we have a university center criminals